I was visiting with the EBF in September, and being in Berlin, it began to dawn on me some things that I had seen in my travels that I hadn't really paid much attention to, but as I began to recollect those things that I saw, it began to trouble me what I'd seen. And as I thought about it, I'd seen some things that were huge that were troubling to me. And the things that I saw, one after the other as I made my trips, were famous walls. And I began to realize just what kind of specialists we human beings are at building walls. And on my travels with the BWA, I've seen some pretty famous ones that we've built. There was Hadrian's Wall in the northern part of England. What amazed me about that wall is how much of that is still standing, and it was built by the Romans to keep out the Scots. 73 miles long if you live in this country, and 117 kilometers long if you measure distance in other ways. And then I went to the EBF meeting, and Hans Guderian led a group of us on a bus through downtown Berlin, and we went to the spot where we saw the Berlin Wall, which was built to separate the East and the West. And we were there at Checkpoint Charlie, and then as we were sitting there, I was hearing stories from Regina about when that wall came down. Dear friends who that very night drove through for the first time. They were free to do so, and I don't know what time they showed up at your home, Regina, but wee hours of the morning, and they went to see her simply because they could. And to be reminded of that 20-some mile wall that divided the East and the West. And then when I was in Israel visiting with our Israeli brothers and sisters, I was inside the West Bank, and that wall that ran along the West Bank to keep and contain the Palestinians, that wall is 470 miles long and 756 kilometers long. And it's pretty formidable, and many of the Palestinian Baptists who were with me could not get through that wall without a humiliating process, and I felt for them. And then there's that wall in my own country, as I was down in Arizona, and this wall runs 700 miles, or 1,126 kilometers, all the way from San Diego to El Paso, Texas, and that's to keep the Mexicans out. And you do know, don't you, that if you were in outer space and you were looking back at Earth, if you were an astronaut, what is the one thing that you would see that would give evidence of human existence? The Great Wall of China. And it began to dawn on me, that is our human signature on the planet. Of all things, it's a wall. And then I started thinking about, those are the obvious, famous, visible walls. What about all the other walls that I had been seeing in my travel? The racial walls, the political walls, the culture, gender walls, the economic, educational, generational, international, regional, tribal, religious, denominational, theological walls. We are really good at coming up with walls. I mean, we're masters at it. We know we're spectacular at dividing and subdividing into smaller and smaller pieces. Now, don't get me wrong, I love difference. I'm not talking about differences. I'm one who actually enjoys differences, and what I love about the BWA is the differences that we introduce each other to. The only problem is over and over again our differences turn into divisions that turn into exclusions, and these exclusions take on bizarre and damaging isolations, and they separate people off. But it gets even worse than this, folks, these walls. It becomes interpersonal, where we build walls up between each other, and you don't have to get mad at each other. You don't have to be violent with each other. You can just be silent with each other. You can just not see each other. And year by year, brick by brick, we build walls. And it's even deeper than that. Because I find in my own self, when I'm on these trips, I have to deal with some walls inside myself. What if I'm being confronted by somebody? And I don't like what I'm being told. Do I defend myself? Or do I have a better self and listen to what truth might be spoken to? When I think about giving, do I give generously? Or do I take care of the needs that I have? There are walls within my own soul that divide my better self from my other self. This thing with walls is pretty devastating. And so Paul says there's something inside of us that doesn't like walls. And that something's name is Jesus. Because he says in Ephesians 2:14, Christ is our peace. He has made us one. And he will knock down the dividing wall. And I want to tell you, that has become so critical to my own heart, my own understanding, and my own sense of self, and who I want to be in the world, and who I want to be as a part of the BWA. I'm tired of the walls. And part of my joy is traveling and being with you guys, and all of your setting, and gals, and seeing the ways you are tackling the walls in your world. When I was at Asia Pacific, Bonnie, where are you? You're somewhere in here. There you are. And Ross up here. Ross was elected as president. And I wish Les Fuchsel was still here. Fuchsel was here because I was able to sit in that meeting and watch a young lady come and listen to the poor walls that young lady had to cross as her